Welcome back to pixelprojectradio, the video game discussions podcast, where we do deep dives and analyze all of our favorite games and some of yours too. My name is Rick, and today the quest continues as we discuss Quest 64's sequel, Quest 65, better known as Quest Brian's Journey. Since this is Quest Part 2, I'm joined once again by Mike, better known as Quest 64 Official. Thanks for joining me today, my friend. How are you?
I'm great, Rick. Thanks for having me back for more questing.
It's going to be fun. I was checking out my podcast app, and I was searching for other episodes on this, and spoiler alert, if you search Brian's Journey, you get a lot of wellness podcasts that are not about the acclaimed Game Boy Color game.
It's true. There's a lot of self-help books, too. If you go try to purchase a copy of Brian's Journey, you're going to get a lot of books.
Did you buy any? You want to talk some self-help journeys before we get into the game? I know audiences love it whenever you've got a long preamble. How's your self-help journey been, Mike?
It's good. This is my self-help journey. Going from 64 to 65 is what I do to keep me mentally prepared for the hellscape we're living in right now. So.
No. Don't tie it back into the game. This is unrelated conversation. Audiences love this. I've got some crystals. Do you want to buy some? They'll heal you. They heal malaria. They heal it all.
Is this a Spencer Pratt joke?
No, I don't. Why do I know that name? He
sold crystals. He was on MTV's The Hills and a bunch of other things that an ex-girlfriend of mine watched a long time ago that I absorbed.
Incredible.
So getting away from that was self-help.
Yeah, heyo. We are talking about Quest: Brian's Journey. This is a Game Boy Color sequel to Quest 64, but it's also, in terms of story, a retelling, demake, however you'd like to say it. It's the same game, fundamentally, just a little bit expanded in terms of the story. They try to do a little bit more with the lore that they just didn't have time to get into in the Quest 64 version on the N64. My personal history with this game is incredibly short. I played it for this show. This is the first time I heard of it. Mike, I know you are no stranger to questing. You're no stranger to this game or Quest 64. You see it as a challenge. When did you first become aware of this?
I was trying to tie it down. I know what house I was living in when I found out about it. It was probably...
I'm sorry.
7 or 8 years ago.
We wanted a specific room. We're going to have to redo the recording.
I probably have a picture of the room that contained my Quest tower at that time when I added the Game Boy games to it. But yeah, it was well after my Quest 64 journey started, so years and years after. I was in my 30s. I actually found the other Game Boy Color game first, Fantasy Challenge, and then this one.
Oh, okay.
And after Fantasy Challenge, I wasn't convinced I was going to love this one, and was really hesitant to play it because I didn't want it to ruin the stigma that Quest 64 has in my head, or the power it has over me. But I enjoyed it. It's just not it doesn't have the same effect on me that Quest does. So probably because I was older and more experienced and not Quest pilled from my teenage years.
Sure. You didn't reach that milestone yet that every young boy goes through. Before we get into this episode, we should say, first of all, I wanted to say thank you to everybody. Perplexingly, the Quest 64 episode got a lot of positive feedback. Just a lot. Not just folks interacting with the posts online, but people reaching out to say hey, this was really good. I really enjoyed this episode. More so than you would expect for Quest 64. No offense, Mike, but it's just, it's not a game whenever you cover games around it like Clair Obscur or, Outer Wilds, you don't expect to do Quest 64 and get a lot of praise, So I wanted to say thank you, first of all, to everybody for the kind words. I hope you like this one. And speaking of this one, it's going to be a companion piece to the Quest 64 episode. So if you haven't listened to that one, it would be pertinent to do so. A lot of what we're going to talk about today is going to be based on that game. A lot of the times we might refer to that game. A lot of the times we might just say, yeah, it's the same as in 64, moving on. It's not because we're doing this game a disservice. It's because this game did come out after. We just did an episode on 64, and we don't want to be redundant. So, little disclaimer, go check that episode out. Let us know what you think, and then come back here. So speaking of Brian's journey, I was thinking about this, Mike, and I'm curious to know what you think. Do you have a preferred playing order for these two games? They tell fundamentally the same story to a point. They're quite different in the hands, though. Do you think listeners should play one before the other? Do you think order doesn't matter? What are you feeling?
I think 64 is probably the best to play first. Besides being shorter, if you get drawn in by that game, you'll probably like Brian's Journey. But if you decide that it was everything you've heard about Quest 64 and it's stale and unenjoyable and unimaginative, then you're probably not going to like the Game Boy Color one as much. Unless you're really into this style of 8-bit classic RPG, then maybe start on the Game Boy. But I would suggest to start your Quest on 64.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I defer to you. You are the expert. You've got more than 64 quests under your belt. I am but a novice, a novice apprentice, if you want to be technical.
Hey-o.
First of all, 64 took me longer, for sure. I kind of, I don't think the order matters all too much, but I could see a compelling reason to play this one first. I do think it's significantly easier up until one battle, and then it's not anymore. But at that point, it's like, well, who cares? But, it's comparatively significantly easier. I think it's much more navigatable, easier to navigate. I really should just rearrange my words to make them easier for everybody, for me and you. That's called compromise. I'm good at that. I think it's much easier to navigate in the Game Boy Color version. Way less map issues than in 64, which really, I mean, it comes down to just, partly the layout and then also the perspective, which we'll talk about here shortly. I don't know. I don't know that I have a strong opinion on which. So, listeners, maybe defer to Mike, who does have a strong opinion and is more knowledgeable on these things. Yeah, play Quest 64 and then try the Game Boy Color version. Community forum, we got nothing. Shocker. I straight up, I'm going to be honest with you all, egg on my face. I didn't even put one up. I figured that nobody but you and me, Mike, would know about this game.
It's hard to get feedback for it, and finding people that have played it is pretty few and far between. So finding people with opinions was probably going to be even harder anyway.
I will say, in some ways, I like this more than the 64 version, so it's definitely worth your time to check it out. Let's talk a little bit about what this is. Development. This was released for the Game Boy Color, as we said, in January of 2000. A new millennium of gaming is upon us for the Game Boy Color. Developed by Atelier Double, published by Sunsoft in North America and Imagineer in Japan. And I'll be goddamned if I could find any more. That's really it. Mike, when we were in the green room talking, you turned me on to something that I missed in the game's credits. This is a different composer technically. The composer on this one is Izumi Shimizu for Brian's Journey. Although I will say, I think it's more of an arranging credit. They use the same compositions from 64 from Amano.
Yeah, he didn't, like you said, he didn't compose the music, but he does get the music credit for this game. And we talked about, I can only find one other game he has any credit on. It's called Monkey Puncher, and I have no idea what that game is outside of the cover that is exactly what you think it is.
I couldn't tell you. It was my nickname in high school, but I have no idea why they call me that. Thank you. That silence is encouraging, Mike. Let's move on.
I was waiting for the soundboard to cue me into how to feel about that.
Sure. Okay. This is going great. Laugh now. So I mean, Atelier, I'm pretty sure that's the same team from Quest 64, right?
Yeah. A lot of the same people had credits on this game as well. So it had to have been being developed near side by side with Quest 64. It probably was meant to come out about the same time, but just like Quest 64, delay. So 2 years later?
Yeah, if I can find any more development info before this episode drops, I will edit it in. My suspicion is that it's buried in gaming magazine articles, perhaps even Japanese magazine articles. So I'm not sure that I'll be successful. Plus, this recording is kind of close to when I'm dropping the episode. We'll see. If I can, you'll hear it now. And if not, well, life goes on. That being said, let's talk a little bit about how this game differs from 64, that is to say. So, Mike, I'm going to kick it to you. What do you think about this game's mechanics?
I like it. I like that it's the same style, the same like battle arena. You're able to move and dodge attacks, all like the same stuff as Quest 64, but every element is much more viable in this game.
Yes.
So it plays more like what people want Quest 64 to play like, I guess is the best way to put it. I feel like it's a lot harder to dodge the 2D sprites on this game in the battle arena, especially when you get to the later bosses in the game. The size of the arenas and the size of the sprites is harder. But in general, it plays like really well. If you're familiar with the Quest system, this should feel right at home.
Yeah, it really does play like a pure distillation of Quest 64. The real difference is the visual presentation. This isn't on a 3D grid, obviously. You're still within that battle arena. You know, it's a square this time instead of an octagon. But it's a sort of, not top-down, but, you know, a 2D Game Boy approach, you know, left and right. You can still move in all of the cardinal directions and all the diagonals, but you're not from a 3D perspective. This makes things much easier to hit and sometimes dodge. I to be honest, Mike, I never really tried dodging in this game. Not really. So I wouldn't, you know, I can't speak much to that. But I found that accuracy was not nearly as big of an issue as it was for me in 64, which, as you'll remember, I did complain a little bit about.
I do remember.
It's kept me up at night. I can't believe you. I put a picture of you on my dartboard.
Brian or me?
No, you put a picture of me on your dartboard. I would never. Brian didn't do anything.
Yeah, the homing spells, especially in this game, are, you know, never miss, I guess the best way to put it. Like, or very, very infrequently. Though it does have the same fun quirk as Quest 64, where casting buffs on yourself occasionally misses, which is funny as another apprentice magician trait where you can't, where you miss casting something on yourself.
Now, I mean, that was one bugbear of mine in 64, was that buffs could sometimes miss. That just doesn't seem like, yeah, like I know we joked about it being diegetic, like, oh, haha, he's like an apprentice, you know, to the magician, apprentice to the regional magician. It's fine. Like, okay, but another thing that can miss in this game are items. If you use an item on yourself, like let's say the giant's shoes. The giant's shoes is a really useful item that makes your movable distance, it makes your little box in which you can move much, much bigger. It's a very useful item if you're trying to put distance between yourself and an enemy that, you know, hits hard up close. Great. However, they can miss. Items can miss. You can use your expendable items and it will just say miss. What the hell is that?
Yeah, I don't know. It's good fun though, right? I guess that's all I can really say about it.
No, it's the opposite.
Another item bugaboo that gets me in this game is your inventory. I don't know if you had any problems with that, but you fill up pretty quickly, and there's no way to really drop items, just the ones you don't want. Or when you open the chest, there's no way to swap an item for the one that's in the chest. And a lot of times you're going to find chests late game that have stuff you want, and you're going to end up just trying to heal yourself with bread just to make space.
Yeah, you know, they said we're turning into a new millennium. Why don't we bring gamers into the 2000s with a Resident Evil-like item system where items don't stack? It's a little perplexing. It never really bothered me simply because you find just a bountiful surplus of items throughout this game. You're never going to be wanting for anything. And thankfully, too, they gave the wings, the items, if you'll remember, that we get from inns that will take us all the way back to whatever town. That's a separate item, like, box and a separate item menu, so those won't take up space. But if you've got 5 health potions or 5 honey breads, that takes up 5 slots. And you've only got, I didn't write down just how many off of the top of the dome. once you're full, you just can't pick up any more items. And that's kind of annoying. But at the same time, like I said, there are just items everywhere. I never felt wanting.
So I played Earthbound for the first time, probably a year and a half, 2 years ago. And one of the questions I had, I thought I was playing wrong, was why is my inventory constantly full? And the internet made sure to inform me that that was a feature of the game, and that's supposed to mimic the pockets of the players. And what kind of child would have infinite pockets for infinite items? So I guess this is the same thing, Rick, right? Like Brian only has so many pocket spaces. He can't stack things in his pockets.
Don't come at me with that. You can put like 10 loaves of fresh bread into your inventory. No child is putting that much bread into their pants. I can promise you this. Parents, do not reach out to me trying to prove me wrong. I don't want to see your child do things like this. It's, it wasn't a bother. It was a little annoying sometimes, sure. But like, I've got too many of these great things and I can always come back and pick them up whenever I need them. Woe is me. That's a little bit how it felt to me.
I agree.
The side view of the sprites on the field, I just want to touch back on that. It is nice. There's no switching the camera angles like in 64. The 64 wanted to take advantage of what it could do graphically, and to its credit, Quest 64 does look very, very nice. It looks very pretty, but the constantly changing camera angles of the battle system did sometimes give a bit of a herky-jerky or disjointed experience. It is the smallest of nitpicks, but it's one worth saying. The static camera angle of the 2D game, where it's just, you're looking at it like they're action figures, I quite liked it, and that's going to come down to taste. Totally. It's not a pro. It's not a con. It's just taste. There's no accounting for it. It's nice.
I agree. Before we finish up the preamble, as you like to say here, and get to the actual game, I do want to point out that this game has one of the best titles if you buy the Japanese version. It's Elemental Tale, Jack's Great Adventure, Satan's Counterattack. There's 2 colons in the name.
That's true. That's where their budget went, was for typeface of the title. Yeah, I learned some kanji looking at that title, actually. It was good stuff. Yeah, L-Tail. Very cool title. And they do a little bit more with, they don't do more with Satan in this game, but they do a little bit more with the baddies, a little bit more interesting, and one twist that genuinely made me laugh out loud. I cannot believe they did it, and we'll get there. We touched on visuals. Let's chat about that for a moment. Largely, if you've played Link's Awakening, if you've played Pokemon, if you've played Godzilla for the Game Boy, like I know you all have, it looks pretty much the same. It's a Game Boy Color game, it's you've all experienced this. It looks good.
I totally agree. And opposite of Quest 64, where the game comes rip-roaring out of the gates with all of its best stuff and then kind of trails off at the end, the game just looks better the further you get into it. The later stages and the boss sprites are awesome on this. I loved it. And kudos to Imagineer and Altair for finishing a game as opposed to just finishing a game.
Yeah, I did get the sense that some stuff wasn't, how to say this, I still got some of this, a sense that some story stuff maybe wasn't fully baked, but front to back, visually, this is very nice. And I agree with you. Some of those late game enemy sprites, there's one in particular, Guilty, who is a very, very minor character, even in this one, and extremely so in 64. The sprite just looks so badass in this one. Mammon looks way better than he does in 64. And Mammon's world, too, that you get to at the very end, looks killer. It looks really, really good. I'm also, I'm a big fan of this era of handhelds. I love Game Boy and Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance, too. But Game Boy Color is what I grew up with. Game Boy Pocket and Game Boy Color are what I grew up with. I'm such a big fan of the sprite work of this and Pokemon and Link's Awakening. I will always think it looks good, and they did a great job here. Brian looks like a little guy. If he's walking with his back to you, you can see his little Hoge hair, notably not a Higo hair. something different. You can see that wiggling back and forth as he moves, which is a really cute little touch. It's great. A lot of the enemies, too, look very good. The Scarecrow, that like demonic-looking black ball with legs and arms that looks horrifying, looks very, very nice in here. The kobolds, the enemies in the forest, they look great. They look like little guys in here. And we meet some surprise enemies like dragons that look really good.
I was also a big fan of Shannon's little sprite in this one. She has the side-swept hair in both games, but in this one, it much like Brian's hair, it's got a little wiggle to it, and it looks really cool.
Yeah, everybody translates to this visual style very nicely. You know, it looks good. It's going to look as good. Now, level design is something that I'd be curious to talk about with you. One of the things about 64 that I had mentioned as a bit of a criticism from me was feeling like a lot of the game was either hallways or just platforms. You know, they felt like they were still under development. They felt like they were a concept piece rather than a fully realized world or environment. Now, even factoring in the notion that this is pared down in terms of the levels and everything, how do you feel the level design and the levels in general compare to 64? Do you think they're a good representation? Do you think they exceed in some areas? What are your thoughts?
I really like them. It's not going to give you the like wow factor of the 64 game. You know, like coming out of Call Hazard through the vines doesn't have that weird like sci-fi tunnel effect. I mean, it does in this game. It's just significantly different. And places like the Blue Cave and Mammon's Realm are pretty good representations in a 2D area of what the game looked like on Quest 64, but the level designs were better in this game. They're laid out better. It's a lot easier to traverse and find your way through and not get lost, which is, you know, a huge gripe about Quest 64 for a lot of people. So, I mean, did they do a good job? Yeah. But it doesn't feel as, you know, like vast and grandiose as Quest does. It just feels like a good game.
Yeah, it doesn't have the X factor that 64 does. It lacks that je ne sais quest that 64 has. Thank you. Again, the silence is so encouraging. I love it. I agree with you. I think it's a good representation. You had made this comparison in the last episode that I thought was very interesting, that Quest 64, it was one of the first 3D JRPG attempts, and, you know, certainly the first one on the 64. And because of that, you know, they were going off of 2D models like Chrono Trigger and like Final Fantasy VI. Now here we see the Demake going back to that. And I think that is fascinating because, you know, what we lose in that grandiosity, let's call it, of Brian standing by a tree, we're seeing the vast holy plans all across, and, you know, we have to walk across the whole thing. We have to dial that back now. Now we're just a little guy. You know, we are walking great distances in a matter of 2 minutes. It is a little bit, it does lose that. I can agree with you for sure. But that sort of top-down perspective that comes with 2D, yeah, you're not getting lost nearly as often. Although there is still one area that is a bit of a pain when it comes to navigation. Color palette's nice too. Looks terrific. By the way, I played this on my Miu Mini Plus. It's not my preferred way to play anymore. Man, I don't think I'm getting that old, you know? There's a trend, I don't know, you're older than me, you might feel differently about this than I do. There's a trend of like young 30 and late 20s calling themselves like super old, and it kind of bugs me. You know, like I feel like my foot's being put into the grave, like 1 foot into the grave before I even hit 40, and I don't like it. I'm still young. I'm still hip. I still got it.
Is it because the screen's small? It doesn't hurt your eyes?
Yeah, that's where that try hard funny tangent came from. Yes. No, it's not that it hurts my eyes. It's just like the device is tiny, the screen is tiny.
Yeah.
Like I don't want tiny anymore. You know, like I'm a fan of big phones. You know, my computer screens, they're not huge. They're 27-inch, but, you know, my laptop screen is 17 inches. I don't want tiny anymore. I want to give my eyes a break.
I tried playing it. I have an Ambernick RG, you know, whatever, something, because they don't name their things. They just number them. And I tried playing it on there because the screen is brighter and I could play it later. But like you said, it's tiny. And not just the screen being tiny, but the layout of the buttons and the shoulders. It's hard on old man hands like mine and yours. So I moved back to my Game Boy Color and my original game and played it on there, which felt better in the hands, but then I had to get the worm light out. So,
which I consider a pro. Yes, you do. You have a nice version of this physically. I looked into that. There are a few listings on eBay, and I do mean a few. The only one that I found that I was interested in buying was just the game, not CIB, which is terribly unfortunate. New battery, but it was like $60 to $80, which for Game Boy, I'm not spending that much unless it's CIB. Like, kind of period. I'm not interested in that. So I did not buy it, unfortunately. Maybe next time.
I don't blame you. That's expensive for a game. And people like to... I used to get poked every once in a while saying that I was driving up the cost of Quest 64 for everyone by buying copies. I only own 2 copies of this game. So if it's expensive, not my fault.
Not this one. I paid a little more for my copy of 64, but in my defense, it is pristine CIB. Like it's good. Anywho's, let's talk a little bit about the sound of this game. As we mentioned before, these are Amano's compositions, and as Mike pointed out to me, Izumi Shimizu's arrangements. What are your feelings about this soundtrack on the 64's sound font versus the Game Boy's sound font?
I don't like it as much. That's probably a given.
Okay.
I have a strong draw to Nintendo 64 music, so it's definitely a me thing. If you like lo-fi, chill Game Boy music, there's nothing wrong with this soundtrack. And if you recognize or if you remember the Quest 64 songs, the ones here are fun to hear a different arrangement from a different system. But I don't really I can't say I like them more, but they're not bad by any means.
Yeah, I can see that. You have a particular fondness for the N64's sound profile. I have a fondness for the Game Boys. I quite like these. There are some, especially the later ones, like the boss fight with Mammon at the end. Amano tries to do some cool dissonance in the 64 version that translates okay, and on the Game Boy it gets kind of abrasive. Now, it's abrasive in a way that, made me, kind of pull my head back and smile, like the stank face, yeah, okay. But I don't know that means it's necessarily good for the average player, A little too crunchy. I do have to say, though, overall, I quite liked it, and it was perplexing to me to see how many people online said it was terrible. If you search Quest Brian's Journey, just on Google, I don't know if you've heard of this, google.com, if you search Quest Brian's Journey on there, one of the first Reddit posts, actually for me this is the first search result that comes up. My query is Quest Brian's Journey interview, because again, I was trying to find as much as I could about this. But the first Reddit result that comes up is titled Quest Brian's Journey, Game Boy Color, featuring absolutely awful, all caps, music. New sentence, awful. I think that's a little bit of an exaggeration. I think they're getting into histrionics just a little bit.
It's the same symptom as Quest 64. One person decided they wanted to type out their thoughts and probably don't have a broad enough view on the video game landscape for what is good and bad. But it's, whatever, it's subjective. They hated it. They didn't like it at all, so they can type it. That's up to them.
They don't even have a podcast. They don't even have the good graces to start a podcast to spew their dumb opinions like us.
Right, Reddit.
Yeah, no, I mean, the internet decided that Quest got the hall pass for, being the whipping boy of our dumb comments, so it gets dogpiled a lot. How many metaphors can I mix in there? It's, I think that's particularly unfair. The music is perfectly fine. I think it's really charming. I do think that, if we're trying to be objective as we can about art, which is to say not at all, but even still, I think the N64's is better. But I have a real soft spot for hearing like Limelin in the Game Boy Color sound font. It's cute. It's nice.
Yeah, there were some real hits for me too. I really like Boil Hole on N64, and it was fun hearing this version. And then hearing the music, which is not the best on the Nintendo 64 version, between the last few bosses and then the run-up to Mammon and his realm. I was really surprised by how much I liked the Mammon's realm post-Guilty music on this version.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some of that later music is really quite nice. Some of it does feel a bit crunchy, a little bit too, there's too much going on. So it goes. I think it was a better decision to demake the soundtrack into the Game Boy sound font rather than compose something wholly new. I think that would have taken a bit of the identity away, and I don't know, I think it would have been a lesser product overall. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong on that. I'm not convinced even as I say this. But all this to say, you're going to be hearing some of that through here. It's been a long time since I've done a podcast with exclusively Game Boy music, so I hope the balancing has been okay and isn't blowing out anybody's ears, but we'll see. We fly by the seam of our pants here.
I'm going to give you a big high five in an audio format here, Rick. I did have a lot of people reach out to me and say that the Quest 64 music behind the podcast that we recorded sounded really good for podcast background music. I don't usually listen to episodes I'm on, so I'm going to take their word for it, but awesome. I hope more people use Quest 64 music behind their podcast.
Oh, that's really nice to hear. I was a little self-conscious that a few of the tracks were too hot, too loud in the background, so that's good to hear. That's nice feedback. You'd be surprised. I don't really get a lot of feedback like that for the show. Even when I ask specifically, which I realize can be a little bit off-putting and, maybe isn't the most nice-mannered thing to do. It could be uncomfortable, but yeah, thank you if you're listening and you were the ones that said that. Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, again, if you haven't listened to the Quest 64 episode, please do. A lot of what we talk about there, especially in the opening stuff, talking about the overall mechanics, the world, the lore, a lot of that's going to apply to this game too. We're going to reference that episode a lot. We've already talked about some areas and such there. Highly recommend checking that out. If not, then, keep enjoying this episode because we are going to talk through the plot, which is largely the same, but not totally, of Quest Brian's Journey. So the start of this is just a little bit different. We're starting with Brian. Brian's outside. He's taking care of some monsters before being sent home by LeVar and Gabriel. Was Gabriel in 64?
No, this was kind of all in an exposition. You were supposed to assume that it was LeVar that took the book because you find him much later in the game. But no Gabriel, new character.
Okay. Yeah, Brian slays a monster. You don't get to play at that point. But LeVar and Gabriel send you home. Bart is here at this time as well. In 64, he wasn't here in the beginning. I don't think he was, right?
Nope.
Okay, I didn't think so. The next day comes about, and Sirius tells you that LeVar and Gabriel stole the L-Tail book. And Bart is going to go out and search for them, but Brian's not going to be far behind. He can't just stay around here. You before you actually depart on your quest, you go around town just looking for rumors and gossip to report back, and you run into a monster, a spirit named Tim.
There are some who call me...
Terrific.
Tim?
This is where you get your first fight. I apologize, this is on me. We neglected to talk about how the spell system works here, and I did kind of want to talk about that. It's largely similar to the 64 version, but I don't know, something about it here, I kind of like it just a touch more. You press a button, I think it's B, to bring up your spell menu, and then you've got your 4 cardinal directions that correspond to your elements: fire, wind, water, and earth. And when you're starting, you get like 1 press in any direction. You can press 1 time for fire. But as you go through the game, as you level up your spirit points, you can press up to 3 buttons in a row, but they can be any combination. You want to press 3 winds for Wind Cutter level 3, my best friend, my savior, my Roman Empire, you can do that. Or if you want to do healing, in this game it's a little different, you press 1 for water and then 1 for rock, and then 2 for rock. Or maybe I might have it backwards, 1 for rock and then 2 for water. That'll give you healing. You want to press, I don't know, rock, water, wind, you can do that too. Now, it doesn't tell you the combinations, like in-game. I think that might be in the manual, or you just figure it out. But I don't know. I really like that. It was a delight for me to just try things out and experiment.
Yeah, and it's got a cute little pixel pictograph at the bottom right that shows you what combination you pressed. And you can back up 1 element at a time and try something different. And then you can write down your favorite combinations for your favorite spells. Like when you figure out that Spirit Armor and Magic Barrier are awesome later in the game, you can write that down.
Oh yeah, Spirit Armor becomes a necessity, like for a couple of fights. One of my favorite things to do in this game, because as we're going to see soon, this game is much easier. So what I started doing was, as soon as I got access to Spirit Armor, and I don't remember the name of the spell, Power Staff maybe, that like boosts your melee attack. I just started doing that and playing a barbarian. It was fun. It was good fun.
One thing that I would be remiss to talk about story-wise before we get to Tim is that when Brian is woken up, could you take a little nap after the book thing? And you are awoken by Gilmine is the lady's name. Is that Brian's mom? I can't find any... Does anybody online know if this is Brian's mom? Please come at me. Because I can't find any information on this character whatsoever. And that's the only scene she appears in, is to wake Brian up. And there's no Brian's mom in 64. So we could have gotten Brian's whole family at the beginning, the first 10 minutes of this game, and not even known it.
I had a brief moment where I started to sweat. Like, it's like when the professor asks you a question, like, can you double check me on this? Like, why are you asking me? You're the expert.
This game doesn't have a lot of info, like you said. So we're making the lore here as we go. We're just going to say it's Brian's mom.
Grand Abbot is going to tell you that he had a dream about your upcoming adventure and how you were going to save us all. I made a note here. I think it is cool and kind of badass to send children on continent-wide quests facing beasts on their own based on your dreams. I think this rules. I think this builds character. I think the youth of today are soft, and I think it's because they don't quest.
I agree. You should trust the children. They are our future.
And the only way they can prove it is by going out into the woods and searching for spirit points. Yep. No, and Timmy, please don't pick that up.
And if they died, then they're just the past, right? So it's...
Yeah, they didn't have the makings of a varsity wizard.
Yep.
So, just like in Quest 64, our first stop is Dondarin. I have a note to talk music if we haven't, but we kind of did. It's nice, it's pleasant, it's not awful like Reddit might have you think. Just like in 64, bandits have been razzling the town. Princess Flora has a larger role here and in this game. In this town right now, in Dondarin, she's being married off at age 14, and seems to be the only person here that's against that idea.
Yes.
There's a knight named Gibson that's going to yell at you for peeking in on Flora while she's changing, which is absolutely not what is happening. Do not cancel this podcast. He takes you aside to wait to talk to the king. There's a man that comes in named Dorley, who's been escorted by a man named Ham, to marry Flora that's going to talk to the king just before us. Mike, I would like to talk about Ham.
I guess I would like to too. What would you like to talk about?
Well, that's where my note ends. I was hoping you would take the reins. No, A+ name. Love the name. Ham. This game has a series of just stellar names. We've got Ham, Ipana, an area called Boiled Whole. Just A+. Terrific.
I'm glad you like the extra exposition of the Game Boy version. There are a lot more NPCs with a lot of great names.
So they're talking. Ham wants to marry the 14-year-old. Standard quest stuff. And Solvering actually makes his appearance here. He does a teleport into the castle in a puff of smoke. He overpowers everyone there. He kind of throws them to the side. He declares himself the king of the beasts. He kidnaps Princess Flora for himself and leaves some monsters in the wake for you to fight. So of course you take care of him. The king, understanding that you're probably stressed from the L-Tail book's kidnapping, asks you to please rescue Flora. And since we are a good boy, of course we will.
Yep, and there was an implication in there, per the implication, that Solvering was supposed to take the hand of Flora from the king, but there was some sort of misunderstanding when he took the orb.
Wait, really?
Yeah, that was somewhere in the text there.
Oh.
He was banished to the forest. He returned to take her hand like he was promised, but he had already stole the Earth orb, so maybe that deal fell apart. Can't trade a 14-year-old for a circular piece of magic stuff.
Exactly. I don't think we need to explain that to our listeners. They
no.
know. Solvering is in Connor Forest, as is typical. This is where I made a note here. Everything in this game is significantly easier to navigate. It's still, don't get me wrong, there are still dead ends and, wrong paths. But it's not even to the complexity of Rock Tunnel in Pokemon Blue. Mainly because, it's not dark and there's not multiple levels. But it's not exactly linear, but it's close. I welcome that, though. A game doesn't need to be needlessly obtuse in its level design or obfuscate the path. That doesn't translate to good. You know what I mean?
I do.
Shannon, we find Shannon for the first time in a little cottage in the forest here. She doesn't do much outside of introduce herself. She's aware of what's going on, just making her presence known. We confront Solvering. He is, as you'd expect, just like 64. He reveals a little more this time around, though. He says, quote, "I was once a spirit tamer. I was exiled when my plan to create a massive army of warriors with the dead was exposed. But I got the Earth Orb and became the king of the beasts." This game does this a lot. It adds a little more life and color to the characters. It's not in a way that creates a cohesive and realized world like, Xenogears or even Legend of Dragoon, but Quest and its compatriot games weren't trying to be that. This is Pokemon levels of world building. It's perfectly serviceable. It's not attempting to be a video game Dostoevsky. And Pokemon is a great example. I know I keep drawing back to that, but it's like that. The NPCs are there to talk to. Sometimes they might talk about the town. Sometimes they might, talk about their grandma. It's fine. It's serviceable. It's better than, to its credit, it's a little better than 64 in this regard.
Yeah, you get to talk about necromancy, which we didn't talk about in 64. So, dropping good magic stuff in this game.
I would love to see a fan, remake of Quest 64, just integrating everything from this game into that. You know what I mean? To, a combination of the two.
Yeah.
It'd be pretty cool.
You're not the first person to say that. They would be awesome. And there are some people working on some fan remakes of Quest. So maybe, just maybe, we'll get some of that in there.
Yeah, you're not the first person to say that. I haven't had an original thought in my life. I know. Solvering gets hit by one of my Wind Cutter 3s and is instantly annihilated. This will become a theme of this game for me. I am basically Dennis Reynolds, a golden god, but not of manipulation and implications, of destruction with my Wind Cutter.
Tools, duct tape, zip ties, and
Wind Cutter.
I have to have my tools.
It was actually pretty comical. I remember messaging you about this, Mike. I did a bit of grinding, a normal amount of grinding, not excessive, just a little. And then I went to Solvering. I used one Wind Cutter 3 and did 300 damage this early in the game and just instant KO. It was at that point that I realized that grinding breaks this game.
Yeah, and like we talked about, unlike Quest 64, you're going to hit almost every single one of your shots every single time. So when something like Wind Cutter 3 fires 15 Wind Cutters, you're going to do a massive amount of damage.
Mm-hmm. So we save Flora. We save her from Silvering. She gives us the Earth Orb, and at the request of the king, Scott Furt, by the way, that's his name, we raid his back room like in 64, and we're off. I don't remember how we're told to go here, but we are now going through the locked door in the forest. There was a previously locked door. On our way to Larapool to get the Mermaid Orb.
You meet Shannon at the inn by the boat again, too. And she kind of gives you the nudge towards, well, she's still saying nothing, but it's at least nothing and you need to go to.
Yes. Yeah. Before you get to Larapool, you get on the boat with Maraig, just like in 64. By the way, the inns still do, remember we talked about last time how the screen just fades to black and it says, did you have a night's sleep? You know, and with the sailing, you just go into a room and then exit and then boom, you're there. This game still does the black screen with sleeping, you know, fine, but you get a little Game Boy view of the ship sailing across the water, which, you know, it's great. I like it.
I did. I wrote myself a note later in the game that Rick got his ship exposition that he really wanted, that he wanted to see from Quest 64.
I like seeing him sail, you know, just shooting across the water, you know, it's nice.
It's good waves.
Yeah, nar. Get that nar. We meet Colleen. We meet Colleen on board. She mentions that her father is a spirit tamer too. Do we know? I made a note here. Do we know who that is? I don't remember.
No, but she also kind of implies that she is also trying to become a spirit tamer and is some sort of wizard as well. So I guess she's the more important person, not her father.
Spirit tamers in this game are like wildly expanded upon. And maybe I'm being a bit hyperbolic here. They're expanded upon quite a bit. Like, you know, in the Quest 64 version, and I will admit I didn't talk to every NPC, but I kind of got the feeling that Brian was like the special boy. Whereas here, it seems like spirit tamers are like kind of like the blades in Elder Scrolls. You know, like multiple people can join. But it is like an elite kind of a group. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And like you said, just having the amount of NPCs we already have in the first 25 minutes of this game, you're starting to see that maybe that was what was going on in Quest 64 and they just didn't say the quiet spirit tamer part out loud for us. Yeah.
That's probably what happened. Speaking of 64, we get a pretty big departure from that right now. We're attacked on ship while we're sailing over towards Larapool. It's the pirate known as Kiliak. You remember Kiliak, we run into him in 64. He's robbing us. He is I am the captain nowing us. He was actually a little bit tougher for me than Silvering. I still won with only a few hits, but this is where I started using spirit armor to try to like bonk my way through before I realized that I am basically Saitama from One Punch Man with my wind cutter.
I was just glad that he was an actual pirate here for you and not like some sort of pirate magician combo that gives you the heebie-jeebies. Just regular pirate.
Yeah. As we all know, pirate wizards simply too powerful. They're up to no good. And here's another total departure. After the battle, it's actually Colleen that drives Kiliak and you know his goons away. We can assume that he's got goons. She summons Leanon, a literal Loch Ness monster. Yeah. Is Colleen way more powerful than we are?
It certainly seems that way.
That was wild. I was not expecting this at all. Like she should be going on this quest. Let Brian study to like, you know, get his marks. She is crazy. That was awesome. But the ship makes it back to land, and just like in 64, the wind and the sea has stopped. We can't make it to Normoon just yet, so we are heading to Larapool. Just like in 64, we're helping Layla. Here, she frames it as the mermaid orb basically breaking down, and we just gotta go get her another from Crystal Cave. They cut a lot of the travel out. In this version, she just takes you to the entrance basically right away. What happens? She like lowers the water in 64. Here, I don't think that's even a thing. She just kind of takes you to a path. You walk down the path and you're already there, you know?
Correct. It was weird in 64, but that was a lot of people's burden with the game, was not knowing where to go. And if you didn't leave her and then come back, she never changes the water level. So people got stuck there. It was nice to just have a literal place to go in this Game Boy version.
Yeah. I went back into town in 64 to just, talk to people. And then I came back and I was like, what? I've got to ask you again? Come on, Colleen, Layla. You've got me on my knees.
In such a magical area Clapton. There too. Yes. Yes. We were getting really lovely there in the waterfall room with her. I'm glad you brought Clapton into it. So.
To 64's credit, the waterfall room, it doesn't exist in here, does it? Not really?
No, it doesn't.
And oh man, that's one of my favorite rooms in the 64 version. I'm not, that sounds like I'm being an ass. I'm not. Like, that room looks really pretty. Speaking of pretty, Crystal Cave, you'll be thrilled to know that Crystal Cave isn't nearly as annoying as it was in 64. Not nearly as bad. There's also an optional NPC in town, I think it is, Mike, I don't quite remember, Naltez, that tells you a little bit about the Day of Grief. Here's what Naltez says. It says, quote, "Long ago, a dispute arose over a book which had enormous powers. All who lived in the country which won the book perished." And this kind of paints the Eltail book as like a horrendous force, a biblically powerful artifact. We don't get a lot of this characterization or see any demonstrations, but it does kind of make it a little bit less of a MacGuffin. Like, we get that a little bit in 64. I don't want to misrepresent 64, but we don't get that really until, that tower in the desert in 64, I think?
Yeah, lots more references here to the book, to the Spirit Tamers, and to the all caps 1,000 years than you get in Quest 64, which all kind of come in the last 25% of the game. So it's nice to have the build up in this game compared to the dump that you get in Quest 64.
Yeah. And, to be in fairness, I still don't have a grasp on what the Eltail book is exactly. The game doesn't go to great lengths to really fan that out. I don't know that that's a con necessarily. My knee jerk is to say it is, but at the same time, stories don't need to explain and over-explain everything. I don't know. I would need to think about it a little bit more. But at any rate, Shannon is here again, just making herself known, telling us what the town's up to, There are mimics all around the Crystal Cave that'll disable your magic. I immediately run away, flee if I run into them, because it is just not worth the time it would take to fight them. Not worth it.
And it seems like it works every time, too. Like, they never miss with that stuff.
Oh, of course. They're not apprentices.
Nope. Full-blown magicians.
I think this next part is different, too, Mike. I don't 100% remember. As you're traversing, you get washed away by an incoming wave. It just comes off to the left side of the screen and washes you. And a talking owl named Chappie finds you. You might remember Chappie. And he literally says, as you're coming to, "You should not be here. You are in the way." Terrific.
Yep. Not in Quest 64, obviously.
Well, yeah, sure. He takes you to see Ipana, whose house/abode, cottage, happens to be just a few steps north of here. Ipana knows about your compatriot taking the Eltail book. She knows why you're here. She knows everything that's going on with Layla. She knows everything, basically. She says as much. She'll give us the mermaid orb and teleport us back to Larapool. We give it to Layla. She spins around and around and right round like a record baby, and magically, everything is fixed. I love Game Boy games.
It's great.
So now that we've helped Layla, it's time to go after the Wind Orb. We can get to Normoon now through Cull Hazard. I admit I did not take any notes on Cull Hazard outside of this next upcoming pretty big difference. There's a talking dragon that pops out while we're in this area.
Yeah, the Eltail dragon.
Oh, is that its name?
Yeah, I think that's what it says. That's the note I took, was time to kill the Eltail dragon, well known from Quest 64. So.
It's it's just the standard trope. Like, it's a force of mystical nature that wants to test your power. That's pretty much it. This was the first like tough fight. Like, you have this is where spirit armor comes into play. You're gonna want to use your bread. It's not easy. You'll game over here.
It's very cool looking too, and it's the first time where the enemy is significantly larger than you. Like, before, we've had bosses that are, it's like adult to child size sprites. This is the first time where the game shows you how large these monsters can be, which was, didn't really happen in Quest 64 until you got to Mammon. So it was nice that they started throwing at you this kind of thing earlier in the game here too as well.
That's a really good call. And I wonder if that wasn't due to, them being on the Game Boy. They have less to work with, so they could do that a little more often. I imagine it would have taken a lot more time and effort to make more of those scales of monsters in Quest 64, or even, that's even why like Big Mouth, the best enemy in Quest 64 isn't really all that much bigger than you, when in reality, he would probably be about the size of a real crocodile compared to a real child.
One would think.
One would hope. One would dream.
We do dream in Quest.
We all dream of Quest. We're growing boys. This dragon, the L-tail dragon, is really just a strength check. Like, they're just checking to make sure that you're, playing the game. That's really all. And you get to Normoon, largely the same as 64. We've got to get the Wind Jade. One thing that's different here is we find Leonardo. So Mike, you and I talked about Leonardo in the 64 episode. You entertained me a little bit in wondering what his role would have been, even though you knew already. And, we were both right. He's kind of like your rival, sort of.
Yeah, he definitely is a little sassy boy in this game. He likes to try to one-up you a little bit every once in a while, but you do have a lot of shared goals. So I guess it's kind of like Pokemon. You're going for the same kind of thing, but he ends up being a compadre instead of a rival.
You get into a little duel with him here. One thing that I don't think we pointed out, in combat, your sprite is always the same, but enemy sprites are not. They're like, they get the Final Fantasy VI treatment. You run into Kefka, he's got the little sprite, and then in the battle, he is a golden god, of a Michelangelo masterpiece. It's not quite to that level, but like Leonardo's sprite here is like, in battle, it's twice your height. It's he's got more proportioned limbs, things like that. Also, not a hard fight. You kind of wipe the floor with him. It's not not even a thing.
Yep, and then he immediately talks about Zels. Like, the Spirit Tamer Zels. You'll have to be the one to go and fight him because obviously you're beating me and I was going to do it. So Spirit Monk Zels is next.
Yeah, it's here that I'm realizing how many former Spirit Monks we're fighting. Kind of like we're fighting our former compatriots who have become corrupted. I'm just putting that together. Speaking of Zelsa, you find Zelsa tussling with Leo in the forest. I will call him Leo from here on out. We're on that kind of relationship level. We step in because Leo's having some trouble beating Zelsa. We win the fight. He fades away, which presumably means we killed him. We do a lot of killing in this game of people.
There was a little exposition here too. Zelsa or Zels, whichever way pronunciation you want to use. He hates Baragoon. And he's trying to protect Normoon from Baragoon, which was apparently Baragoon trying to kill all of the spirit monks. So there was some like extra stuff in there. It's like, I'm not just a guy in the forest. I have motives and things.
Yeah, exactly. The hatred of Baragoon is going to come up more in a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah, we do way more killing. You look into Brian's eyes and it's just nothing but malice. It's crazy. Before you can talk to Leo about what this means, you don't know what this means. He runs off and Layla comes back like just right at the same time saying, yeah, this old orb that you got me, it's a hunk of junk. I need you to get me another. So without even asking, she just teleports us back to Epona again. And my note says, "Can you believe this shit?" No.
Shout out.
Yeah. Shout out to our friends, Eric and Crisp. Epona does not have an orb this time. She's going to teleport you again. You're just getting passed around. She says use her teleporter to go to the Isle in the Sky, but it takes you to Killian's ship instead. Killiak? Did I miswrite that?
Killiak, yep. Yeah, she sends you to get one from Colleen, because Colleen apparently has one.
Oh, true. Right. You're going there by means of Killiak's ship. There's another ship fight here. It's just with a regular monster. No biggie. On shore, we're back in the shack, just like in 64, with Colleen and Killiak. She just can't stop talking about how much Killiak sickens her.
Yeah, she
just right to his face.
Hates him just as much as the N64 version. Just like, get this pirate out of here, please. This is just the worst thing that ever happened to me.
And he's just like, this is kind of funny. We're going off to get the water jewel from Nepti. Once again, she's taking it. She's down inside of a fissure, inside of the ocean depths. It's not as epic of a quest to get there as it sounds like from that. But we actually find her really quickly. My only note: Windcutter 3.
Yeah, the blue cave is a lot less daunting in this one, and I really like the shade of blue that the Game Boy Color palette used for this. One of my highlights of the game was how cool the blue looked here. It wasn't just plain old like blue walls and a slightly different color blue ground.
Yeah, I agree. It looks really pleasant. It's really nice. So Colleen takes the water gem, the water jewel, sends us back to Epona, who then sends us back to Layla. I think Epona gives us another mermaid orb. I guess she found one. Whoops. Sends us back to Layla. Layla dances, just like Yuna. Layla dances. She always dances. And all is well, once again. I have a note here that I wanted to get your thoughts on. I'm not sure. I'm missing some of the lore here. Epona mentions here and in 64 that the water jewel specifically seals the power of the Eltail book. And it's here that I wrote, I'm not 100% convinced that I understand the functions of these orbs. Do you have any insight into this?
So the way I understand it is that, there's the diamond on the front of the book. You stick the orbs into the book, and then that releases the book's power, kind of like a Nicronomicon instead of a Necronomicon. It's meant to do things for good, but nobody has enough power to control it, which is why all these bad things have happened as well. But I don't know why she specifically calls out the water one, because you still need all four and the book to do the thing. But maybe she just really likes the water one.
Sure. Limelin is going to be our next stop. Not 100% sure how we get there, to be honest. I don't quite remember. I was also at this point following a guide, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, you sail again. It's more boat music. I really like the boat music, so I made a note here that just said boat music.
Boat music.
Boat music.
Boat music.
Boat music. So, much like Quest 64, there are rumblings around town that your Pops has been through here previously. You also learn that Fargo is on the loose, a fiery serial killer. We're not explicitly asked, but that's who we're going to get now. This is also where Shannon begins to opine on human nature. Just like in 64, this is where she begins to ask these questions. Here, she says, I wonder why people built such an useless capital, not a typo. Well, it is a typo.
It's just AI learning. She's getting there. She's learning our language.
No, there are people that believe that you see it with an historic a lot of the times. Like they believe that an should precede vowel sounds, but the problem is that useless isn't a vowel sound,
I get it.
It's a Y sound, which doesn't function as a vowel in this case. Just like historic is not pronounced historic, so an is not applicable. It's archaic. You know what I mean?
I do now.
Am I nerding out too much?
No, I do like it. This is the kind of learning I need to do on podcasts instead of some of the podcasts I absorb. So,
if you want a video game podcast that does an okay job at video games and a kind of okay job at amateur grammar, you could probably do better than me, but you're here anyway, so stick around. It's the easiest choice, and the easiest choice is the best one.
Yep, you're already here. Finish it up.
Anyway, Shannon continues. Shannon didn't say all of that. Such an useless capital. While the capital might be here 1,000 years from now, there is no one who can live that long. She's beginning to question humanity. This is also where we find the lottery, which is, I cannot believe I typoed soul like what is in my body, which is the sole use for spirit points. That's a pun. Oh my God, no. That was, listeners, don't listen to what I just said. That was on purpose. Soul here, that's purposeful. I'm very funny. Subscribe to the Patreon, patreon.com/pixelprojectradio, which is, this lottery is the sole use for spirit points, which you've been finding in chests throughout the game. They do not take up inventory space. They get their own little screen. You use these to play the lottery. You want to talk about the lottery, Mike?
I do. The Limeland Lottery is great. So it's something that would have been really fun in the N64 version. So you can give up your spirit point gemstones to enter. There's a bunch of things that you can put them towards. Most of them are normal items, like mint leaves and things, but there are 4 special items at the bottom. 3 warriors items, a badge, a cape, and a staff, and then one that just says orchestra and gives no further explanation whatsoever. But they are all very useful. The orchestra gives you, if you can win the lottery, the orchestra gives you all of the music from the game to listen to at your leisure. And then the warrior's badge cuts enemy encounters in half in the wild, so drops the abrasive quest encounter rate to 50% less.
It is high.
It is high in this game too. And it's not as bad because the walking isn't as far, so it feels, but it's high for any RPG.
That's interesting. I didn't know that those did that. I want to share my experience with the lottery right now. I played it once, and I don't remember what I didn't have enough spirit points for any of the good stuff at the end, like you had mentioned, the warrior stuff. I think I bought like a dragon's potion. It was a dragon's potion. So I did that, and they said, all right, we'll let you know. And how it works is after a certain amount of walking, I think you have to progress through, what do you call it, when you like go through the right side of the screen and then it transitions to a new board, and you're on the left. Just a transition. You have to do a certain number of those, I think, or like go into battles, stuff like that. And after a while, a bird will fly in. It freezes you in place, and a bird flies in from the right side of the screen. And you say, oh, there's something on this pigeon's leg. And I thought, okay, they're sending a bird out to me. I won. I grabbed the note, and it says, sorry, you lose. And it's here that I throw the Game Boy. And I hit a real bird. No, I didn't do that. I didn't even play on a Game Boy. I thought that was hilarious that they sent a bird to find me in the forest just to say, screw you, bozo, you lose.
It gave me strong Hey Arnold vibes. I watched a lot of that. I don't know where I got this from, but it felt like one of the pigeons from Hey Arnold that just said loser, and then that was it. That was the only thing that was on the message. But yeah, I liked it.
Oh man, that's like top three Nickelodeon show for sure.
I'm a big Angry Beavers fan too. I don't know if have a lot of Angry Beavers listeners and viewers in the audience here, but we stan Angry Beavers.
Oh, for sure. My gut reaction for like, so if we can agree to leave SpongeBob out of the conversation, that doesn't feel fair. It's kind of a generational show, but if we can leave that aside, like my gut reaction, top 3 Nickelodeon shows, Hey Arnold, Doug, Angry Beavers.
It's a good 3. What was the one that was, that had the smaller shows in it, and the one I really liked was Prometheus and Bob. It was like a
that was
claymation. Kablam. That's what I couldn't think of. Really liked Kablam too.
Yeah. It also had Action League Now with The Flesh. He's super strong and super naked.
Yep. Oh, man, that was... I still find myself stumbling on little clips of that show and forgetting where it came from. I'm like, who would put this on Nickelodeon? I'm like, oh yeah, it was a variety show. We're good.
It's that surrealist kind of humor, like sketch humor. It's, man, what a time, dude. Like, I know everybody says this, but we grew up in such a goddamn great time.
Agreed.
Well, I grew up. You were a little older than me.
Yeah, I was semi-grown.
I mistook this next note as saying that we were back in Barragoon, but I don't think that's correct. Where are we that we run into LeVar for the first time here? Do you remember?
I don't see. We already talked to Queen Deanna. Are we still in Limeland?
We're progressing through, like it's right before we run into Fargo. It's after we leave Limeland looking for Fargo. We run into Lavar. I wrote Barragoon. I don't think that's right, though.
No, he says he'll be waiting for you in Barragoon, but I don't remember where we are either. Somewhere in between.
Yeah. At any rate, we run into Lavar. It's shocking. Your avatar even does a little jump, and he says, quote, "It's been a long time, Brian. I have been cursed and cannot even die. This is because I used the Eltail book to rule the world and called upon a terrible power to accomplish my goal, the power of destruction. Now stop with the power of the so-called spirit." Very fascinating. It sounds like he wants to die and his soul, like his ethereal being, has been taken from him. You know, I mean, this game isn't dark, but that's kind of dark for what this game is.
Yeah, they kind of throw you on the 180. It seems like they're giving him plot armor because you just whooped him at that point. But then this is what you get. You get actual, like, plot instead of just random plot armor. So once again, Brian's journey coming through with things that we could have learned in Quest 64 but weren't given the time to learn them.
Yeah, he does an impressive 50 plus damage to me with a fire attack. I heal it. He does another attack that does only 10 or so. Huge mistake, because Windcutter 3 is coming out, and it does literally 800 damage. I am powered to level 50 at this point, and I don't think I'm supposed to be. It only takes one more move to take down Lavar in what I assume should be a climactic battle.
I think I was over... So I started with water and then moved to wind, and I think I was approaching 50 on both spells at this point.
Yeah, there's plenty of encounters and wild spirit points. Like, you're going to end the game probably with 50s across the board.
Yeah.
Fargo is not far behind him, inside this fuck maze of a cave. I hate this. This is the one level that really threw me off. Like, it's kind of hard to navigate in this one. I got lost quite a little bit.
Luckily, there's like 3 distinct parts of it, though. Like, different color palettes, different, like, backgrounds and things around, so at least you know when you're going backwards. But yeah, it's long, easily the longest so far.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Fargo says he's not handing over any gems, especially not to Vegas, and that he's the king of Keltland. Is this the first mention of Vegas that we get?
Yep, and then he dunks on you for being a little boy right after that.
Yeah, which is funny because my next note is big talk for someone who can't handle my Windcutter level 3. Yep. So after we get out of that maze, we reach Brannock. Just like in 64, it was raised by the king, just to test his own strength, is what Shannon tells us. And she continues, "Why do you protect humans?" You know, she's continuing on this existential stint that she's stumbled into. But yeah, it's cool. This town is completely, not entirely, but it's like clearly in disarray. It's been slashed to bits. Things are not going well. The innkeeper here makes me talk to him twice to rest and save my game and re-heal, which I interpret as them forcing me to pray for the dead, which is what they asked me to do the first time. No currency, only exchanges for goods and services. Mike, how much is one prayer for me worth?
1 nap?
Thinking about that. I got to chew on that. 1 nap.
I do like the Shannon exposition that you said here too. She asked why we protect humans, but then she goes on the whole why do humans do such foolish things? And man, so much more. I love Shannon. I love Shannon from the Quest 64 version. So having her just prattle off every time you run into her here is just great. Love it.
It would be really great to see a spiritual successor to this where, like, Shannon in all but name reappears, you know? She is an interesting character. We're on to Boiled Hole. I think it's called Boil Hole, but I call it Boiled Hole throughout this whole thing, all my notes. A big red maze. That's all it is, just a big red maze. There are enemies here that look like mummies that are called ghost stalkers that will fuck you up. Like, they're tough.
I think this is the first appearance of Rockies in this one as well, which are the bane of Quest 64 speedrunners, because it's the the first enemy that will easily beat you in initiative in Quest 64, and they're really hard to run from, which is how you do the agility hack. So, seeing Rocky with his weird face here too was a jump scare.
Is this also where you run into those like blue lions that almost always let you go first?
I don't remember seeing them till... I don't think I encountered any here. Definitely later on near the Mammon part.
Yeah, I think I'm a little ahead of myself. I think you're right. You just go through. It's not, it's a bit of a maze, not too crazy. But we get out and we arrive in Brannock after exiting Boiled Hole. There's talk of an injured monk having been taken to the castle. There's some spirit tamer and a woman came through. We also hear about that. And ever since, the king has been acting crazy. Everybody's despairing. The knights are despairing. Vegas is riling them all up for war. One knight, Andrew, only wishes that he could have dated a cute girl. Me too, man. Shannon is here too. Kind of unexpectedly. Like, we run into a room, we see Vegas, like, riling everybody up, getting them ready for war. And Shannon just comes in and she says, "What are you doing here? LeVar is over here." And she takes you to this new room with LeVar. And he says, "You're late. You may find everything baffling, my goals and the ambitions of Baragoon." You say, "LeVar, what happened? I can't understand anything that's happening." And it kind of just goes from there into another fight. He says that he'll tell you everything if we win, which we do.
I don't remember the exact moment in the game, but this is the first part in this conversation where I recognize that Brian is actually talking in the Game Boy Color version, as opposed to just being talked at in Quest 64. Because he, like you said, he asked LeVar what's going on, and that's when LeVar, talks about the burden of the L-Tail book. And I'm like, wait, this is a two-sided conversation. There's only two people here. It's me, Brian, and one person having a conversation in a Quest game. How wild.
He does talk throughout the game prior to this, but it's just only a couple times. Like, he talks to Gabriel and LeVar in the very beginning a little bit.
Oh, yeah. But this was my first realization that it's been a few years since I played this, because I'm trying to write down all of the dialogue when I was playing this time, because I wanted to be a good guest and have notes. And it was just, maybe I was tired and playing my Game Boy with my worm light at night. But I'm like, why is Brian talking so much? What is happening here? When did he get all these words? He's just a little lad.
I want to make it clear that guests are not required to write down all the dialogue in the games we're covering and staying up late to play them.
Beat by beat. We're all fans of the same show here.
Wrong show. Yeah. We beat him, we win, and by win I mean we murder this adult man. Because he dies here, I'm pretty sure. Once we're done, he says, "When Grand Abbot told me of the powers of the L-Tail book, I had to test its strength. I was possessed by an amazing might that even overpowered the spirits themselves." He goes on to say that he tried experimenting, but he failed. And that's when Shannon happened across him and said that he could experiment all he wanted here in the castle. She corrupted him. So she's the motivator in all of this.
Yeah, I put Shannon sent him to Baragoon to experiment with the book, parentheses, bad.
I thought you were going to say parentheses, nice.
Yeah, close to the same thing.
It is parentheses bad. Shannon is being a bit of a parentheses bad guy. Okay, now this is wild. Now we're really veering from Quest 64. Vegas and his goons knock us out. They take LeVar away, and a whole series of scenes happen. Vegas and his goon named Dinaldo, his head goon, they fire cannons and guns at Melroad Monastery, and I shit you not, the monastery unearths itself and flies into the air.
And it's a cutscene, and it's awesome.
Yeah, what is happening here? This is insane. I made a note here, like, that is the monastery that flies into the air, right? Because I'm pretty sure Brannock Castle also flies into the air eventually.
Correct. Yeah, it's the monastery.
Okay. But yeah, guns exist in this world. What the fuck?
Yeah. And apparently castles and things being able to float as a defense is, like you said, normalized, because we have both Brannock and the monastery floating, which you'd think would lead to a sky battle if everybody's got guns, but those are the only guns you get to see, so maybe just Brannock? I don't know.
Yeah, this was wild, dude. I could not believe they were doing this. And yeah, like you said, there's a cutscene. I mean, it's not like animated cutscene, but it's a series of like art pictures that represent what's going on. That comes out of nowhere. I think that happens one other time in the game.
Yeah, this was the first one where I was like, oh, look, they even drew it? This is nice.
Yeah, super cool. I can't believe it. They're shooting fucking guns. Incredible. I need to see this on the N64 yesterday.
Yeah, agreed.
Your dad, along with Leo, meet up with you. Leo actually ends up saving your dad, during his travels. So they're a team. They meet up with you, and you all confront Vegas. Leo manages to fucking evaporate Donaldo with a spell, and Vegas fires one back, but Bart jumps in front of it to protect all of us. He sacrifices himself to save you and to save Leo, and you pass out. You wake up, you're at Ipana's. She tells you the news. Your dad is dead. Dad is dead. She doesn't really give you any time to grieve. She's like, there's no time for that right now. Brian, this is gonna fuck you up in 20 years, but for right now, you got to save the world, kid. She points you in the direction of a teleporter that will take you up into Brannock Castle, which is now also in the sky. I'm pretty sure that's right, Mike?
Yeah, I also had in parentheses, were we teleported here with like no exposition whatsoever? All right, go on.
Yeah, to Ipana's. Yeah, I'm not really sure. Maybe it was Shannon.
Maybe. It's just stop Vegas, teleport, continue. They're just getting you on your way.
It may have been Shannon because we run into her outside of here too. And she's seemingly not evil. Like, she gives you direction to find Shilf and Shilf's mirror. She tells you to, and she's like, yeah, this will help. But I won't tell you why. And then she leaves. And Flora and Leo run into you here too. And the three of you are going to make a little party. And this is, I think I wrote this later, but I'm just going to say it now. One thing that this game does that is noticeably absent in Quest 64 is it gives you some semblance of an entourage, of a party. Now, you don't get to control them, but later on we're going to see a scene with the three of us plus Kiliak plus Colleen plus Layla. Like, this game gives you a party, like a group of fellas, a group of people. Whereas 64, you were just kind of the lone wolf the whole time. That was noticeably absent.
Yeah, which once again, great, because at the end of Quest 64, you seem like, especially when you're in Mammon's realm, it gets like lonelier and lonelier. So to have a coalition of fucked up dudes here to go off and kill Mammon was great. And it leads to a lot of like good traveling sprites and good semi cutscene-ish dialogue expositions. It's fun. I loved seeing all these people together.
Do not call the children fucked up dudes. They look fine.
Well, Kiliak's a little bit bigger, right? Colleen's got to be sort of adultish.
I mean, still, she looks fine. They look fine. Maybe Kiliak. I don't know. So, yes, we go and find Shilf. The fight with Shilf, just like in 64, a bit anticlimactic. She really doesn't do much damage, like 9s and 10s of damage to my, 500, 600. It's just not even a thing.
Did you use something other than Wind Cutter here? Because she has some resistance to Wind Cutter, which is the first time I also noticed. I'm like, oh, wow, it doesn't just do billions of damage. It does 500 million.
At this point, wind and water were at 50 for me. And if fire wasn't at 50, it was at 47. So I didn't use fire because Shilf, she's fire. I think I used water, actually.
I went back to the old standard and started throwing big rocks at her. She didn't like that very much. That also did thousands of damage.
They never do. They never do like that. If there's one piece of advice I can give you on this podcast, women don't like that. They don't like when you throw rocks at them. And for the record, I don't like it either.
No, I'm not a big fan of getting rocks thrown at me either. Glass house, all that stuff, So.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you. We actually have to interact with an NPC for the first time here. Flora suggests that we take this mirror. We got Shilf's mirror, but it's broken. And she says we should talk to Clay in Dondoran. He's just in one of the houses. He's just a dude. He can't repair it, though. He needs dragon scales. And I wrote this in all caps. Wouldn't you know it, that dragon from before isn't just a random dragon. We got to go back and talk to him. But it kind of just serves as padding. It's just another fight. He says, well, I'm not going to give you my skills. You have to prove your worth. And I think one of your characters is like, if the world is destroyed, you go with it. And he's like, I don't care.
So be it.
Yeah, really, really tough fight though. Like really tough
Yeah.
for me anyway.
No, same. This was a definite wall. It was a wall the first time you fought as well, but this time was something else.
Yeah, we get the scale. We repair the mirror. This is where Kiliak shows up to take us to the Isle in the Sky. This is where I make a note. This is where Colleen and Layla join us too. We've got the whole party together. We don't control any of them, but you know, this is nice. This is JRPG. I like this. We don't all go to Mammon's world though. Layla, Colleen, and Leo kind of work the spell, and they send Brian, Flora, and Kiliak up to Brannock Castle. This is where we get into that fight with Guilty. Way cooler sprite than in 64. Way cooler. He looks like a demon. It's awesome.
Yeah, and good animation too. Also, I had a note for this section. I didn't use the wings very much in Quest 64. Like I did the first couple times I played it, but later on it's much more of a linear adventure. From the point where you go to fight Shilf all the way to this part, I used so many wings to float back and forth to cut down the time. I was really excited that they had like real use in the Game Boy Color version.
Oh yeah, I use the wings plenty, but I always made sure to like anytime I would use them, I would immediately get another.
Yeah,
like, you know, they're free.
First stop is going to get the wings.
Yeah, we talked plenty about the the capital free society of Quest. You know, that utopia.
Yep, use one get one. So anyway, back to Guilty. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut cut through the. We're at the best part of the story here, and I'm talking about flying around. So.
No, it's okay. We are required to make one vaguely anti-capitalist remark in every episode. It riles some people up. I know.
Yeah, all three capitalists that listen to this podcast.
Oh, we don't have any capital. No, I'm not going to get into that.
Yeah.
Shortly after, you get a confrontation with Vegas. I didn't write anything, so I'm guessing it's anticlimactic. Did I miss something here?
No, he's waiting for you on the throne. He commends you for being as strong of a spirit tamer, but he says that he has the real power of the elements. Brian tells him that he's just being used, and Vegas is like, I know. He's like, yeah, I'm totally being used. And then they fight.
Yeah, the fight itself, I mean, it's fine. You go into Mammon's world, very cool looking. It's like it's still platforms on a black background, but it just looks better in the Game Boy aesthetic, like the Game Boy architecture. It's like not a starry night. It's like black with some stars, and there are large red, green, and blue like bubbles. You know, like anime bubbles. You know, with the light reflecting off of them. It looks very, very surreal, very cool, and it's distinctly contrasting the kind of chippy sort of not campy, but I'm saying all the wrong adjectives: chirpy, chippy, campy, chappy, choo-choo. You know, like those kinds of. It's a happy looking game.
I called it.
I wonder if there's probably. Sorry?
No, I called it Bubble Narnia. I'm like, how did we get to Bubble Narnia all of a sudden? I don't remember this in Quest 64. And then also the obelisk, I guess, is the best thing. Gave me some strong Final Fantasy 2 vibes, or 2-3 vibes. A lot of out of Quest stuff near the end of the game here that looks like it's from other games.
Yeah, it's very neat. Like you said at the beginning, this the end design of these levels is good. Very, very cool. Shannon is here. She explains that she gave the power to Zelsa, Solvering, Fargo, Nepti, all of them, so that Brian could defeat them, gaining strength himself. So again, she's the puppet master here. And here she gives you the Eltail book, so you can open the path to Mammon. And this is where she reveals what she did in 64. She says, quote, "It was not meant to turn out this way. I am a puppet created to guide Brian. Humans die without knowing the truth and the divine will. Humans are feeling and foolish beings. I don't understand what is good about being human. It is because I'm not alive." She notably does not say, "I'm sorry, I'm talking too much," or whatever it was she said.
Flora takes care of that, though, because she immediately starts beef with Shannon then about this whole thing. And Shannon just kind of dots at her, and that's it.
And Kiliak's response is, "I think she looks like an okay person." totally like, okay, man. All right, that's...
He just likes the women. He's flirting with Shannon, flirting with Colleen. He just walks right. They all look good.
Yeah, sure. I love a woman whose sprite is four pixels high and whose head is 2 of those pixels. Love it.
Yeah, it's my type.
You are told 3 times that this is the point of no return before you go forth to confront Mammon. Fairly similar to 64, like in terms of like how you get to him, in terms of like the general design, but it looks so much more foreboding here. There's like a sort of a childish sheen, or what I wrote here, an ephebic innocence that I associate with N64 graphics. It's not even that they're rounded, because it's not even that. They're the simplicity in them I associate, and maybe it's just association with things like Mario and Ocarina and whatever, but there's an innocence to them. And it's difficult for me to feel a sense of foreboding or dread or whatever seeing those graphics. But here, where it's more akin to like, Final Fantasy, the early Final Fantasies, it looks really foreboding. And especially with what we've seen so far in Quest, this is a great contrast. All this to say, really effective sprite. Not to mention he takes up like the entire screen height. Like he is huge.
The walk-up is really cool, too. Besides all of your random battles being in space now, which I cackled out loud about, but the area just before you get to Mammon, with the, where you get the village fake out, and the in and out of the house fake out, and then the trees, like the dead-looking trees in the fake world gave me strong, like, Dragon Quest 1 vibes. I liked all of this a lot. And then obviously seeing Mammon and having him laugh at my face at the end, like, this made me feel like teenage Mike again with all the classic RPGs I was playing.
Oh, thank you for bringing that up. It's completely surreal going through Mammon's world here. Like, it's taking you through the towns. Like, it takes you through Melroad, but everything is like shut down and closed. Mm-hmm. It is it creates this sense of reality bending. Like, you don't know what is real anymore. I mean, it's JRPG, right? We're going to fight God or demigod, the demiurge. Look, to this game's credit, this is cool. Like, this is really cool. It ends very strong. You go through and it's time to fight Mammon. The difficulty scaling, man, we've got to talk it. It is out of control. The consistency is out of control. Up until now, like, we've had a couple of roadblocks, whatever. Mammon is absurdly powerful. I did not feel prepared, and I was grinding a little bit. This was wild, dude. It was not okay.
If you got the Warrior's Cape and the Warrior's Staff, those help a lot. The Warrior's Cape gives you like permanent spirit armor. It might even be spirit armor 2. It helps. It kills off a lot of it. And then the Warrior's Staff is like permanent power staff 2, so that increases your bonks while you're at it. Anything you can do to cut down, because his like lasers and are just huge on the screen too. Hard to dodge, hard to live through.
Yeah, it's really insane. I didn't successfully dodge any of them. Spirit armor is basically mandatory. It's just this was a bummer to have happen, considering how strongly this game was going toward the end. Like, this is just a poorly designed fight. It stinks. It looks very cool though, like to its credit. Like you said, this is where the items that buff your stats are important. I don't think we mentioned that. You don't have equipment, but you can use like silver amulets and gold amulets to give you defense boosts. They're like consumables, which also means they can fucking miss. I'm pretty sure. It didn't happen to me, but I'm pretty sure it can happen.
One other thing, as we're making the run up to this fight that's going to mess you up, we talked about this in Quest 64, and it like, in the moment I didn't say anything. We talked about the key, the dark Gale key. I think you said that it was supposed to be goal, and that it was like maybe misspelled, because that happens in Quest 64 all the time. So, I get it. But I looked up the word Gale after that. Did you know it's like the name of an old like British jail is a Gale? So it's like Mammon being kept in a eternal prison. So that's what the Gale key is.
I'm going to be honest with you. When I was editing that episode, I said out loud to myself, you moron, it's Gate. I think it might be Gate.
Well, Gaol, Gaol, is like the proper name for like what like 16th century British people called like a medieval jail kind of thing.
Oh. Okay. Yes, you're right. I'm the idiot then. I'm double idiot. I thought in my head I was thinking Gale. Okay. Yes. Okay. I did not know that. Look at you. Etymology win.
Hey, I have a magnet on my my work area of the Dark Gale key, and I like push it around because it frequently gets misplaced by people as they walk by. And I was thinking about that the other day. I'm like, I wonder if there's like any meaning to this other than this magnet on my case, and that's where it came. So.
After you defeat Mammon, you will, if you believe in yourself and the power of... I almost said the power of the Holy Spirit. Kind of, I guess. I mean, we talked about Mammon's biblical biblical connotations.
You do get to talk to the fucking spirit of the stone on the way up to here to save, too. Like it was it Leonardo was the last save point in Quest 64? In this one, you just talk to a big rock, and it's like, hey, you want to save your power here? Spirit of the stone? So yeah, maybe it is the Holy Spirit.
Oh, sure. You know, Moses talked to a bush, and we talked to a stone.
Big rock. Yep.
Yeah, you know, we're something of a messiah ourselves. Just kidding. We're just a naughty boy. Brannock Castle disappears, and Shannon kind of walks away to leave on her journey of self-discovery. She doesn't get a speech this time, but she does walk away. Ipana teleports all of our party back together, and we get the sort of cliche, everybody stands on a cliff looking over the land, all at Keltland, and we get the following epitaph. Brian, the legendary master of Spirit Tamer. There is heart in his magic. This is the story of the magic heart, one of the stories in Eltale, and one of the fables of the spirit. They said the same thing over and over again. The story of Brian, for the time being, ends here. This is where we see the credits roll, and we see everybody returning to their respective homes. And of course, I assume when they say one of the stories in Eltale, they mean like the continued Eltale series of potential and unrealized quest games, right? Not the actual, like we're not living the fable of the Eltale book, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it's for people who played Quest like 10 through 27. This is just one of those games.
Of course. I can't believe they made 16 a fishing game. That was bold and brash.
This is part of the River King series, and we like to see the crossovers.
Yeah, you're not going to get me with another Detroit Become Human reference. I won't let it happen. That would be pretty neat, though. You know, if it ended the game and revealed that like we were playing out a fable in like this holy text, that would be a pretty neat self-referential kind of meta thing.
Maybe that's what they're trying to build a franchise here, and they were going for it, and then they didn't.
Yeah, well, I would say maybe one day, but seems unlikely. As your Blue Sky handle says, you are the source of all things new in Quest, a series that hasn't changed in 20 plus years.
Yeah, I don't know what the impetus would be for them to make a new game at this point, other than to stop other people from making money off of their game that they refuse to do things with. So,
well, that's Brian's journey. To my knowledge, we might be the first podcast to do this, which, you know, who better than Quest 64 official to talk about it, I think. We're certainly the first one to do coverage of this that isn't just a YouTube video shitting on it, because, you know, that's the popular thing to do. Look, this isn't an amazing game, just like Quest 64. It's not a groundbreaking achievement. It's not, but at the same time, it's not, as I said earlier, they're not trying to be Dostoevsky. They're not trying to be Xenogears, right? It's a Pokemon level of storytelling, and what it does is perfectly acceptable. Like, I prefer this to 64 in most ways. I think this is a perfectly pleasant little game. It does not deserve the 2 stars that I see it getting everywhere, 2 out of 10. That's ridiculous. It's fine.
IGN gave it 4 out of 10 bad. But when you go through and read the review, it just sounds like every other game. I don't know how you get to 4, but we'll just let them have their historical bad game.
I don't like, especially in the current climate, I don't like shit-talking video game journalism too much because they're struggling. But my advice that I always give myself and everybody, just find the reviewer, not the publication that you like. IGN, who knows what you're going to get. And I agree with you. It seems like every review that I've read from them, it's just, oh wow, they hated this game and they give it 7 out of 10. Mm-hmm. Oh, cool. Okay. What do I know? Yeah,
that sentiment hasn't changed at all. People like to say that that IGN either gives games 9 or it gives them 7, and those are the opposite ends of the spectrum. 9 is amazing and 7 is terrible.
That's a conversation. I mean, we did a whole games criticism episode. We could do another one of that, and I kind of want to. Maybe one day. But that's Brian's Journey. Pretty good game. Check it out if you haven't played 64. Check it out if you have played 64. And as we said before, check out the Quest 64 episode that we did on the show. It's the one right before this. Mike's there as well. It's a good time. Speaking of Mike, thanks again for joining me, man. This has been a lot of fun. I hope this was enjoyable for you. I hope this was as good for you as it was for me. I know you had voiced a concern that, doing Quest 64 content with somebody can be tricky because, like we've said, there's a bandwagon approach where it's become such that everybody has permission to kind of shit on it, and it's okay. So I was really... I made sure that I was really aware going through this to make sure that my criticisms were founded and I wasn't just joining in to dunk on something. Just like with the Detroit Become Human episodes. I don't like that game, but everything that we criticized, I thought mostly came from a place of validity. And I can back it up, here's why. And I hope that you felt that we did that here and that nothing was truly unfairly scathing.
Oh no, I always tell people it's just fine if you don't like Quest 64 or Brian's Journey, but I would much rather have that come from a place of personal experience as opposed to reading one of the millions of dunk on Quest 64 headlines that you can easily find, or the Reddit awful music for Brian's Journey posts. Just go experience the games for yourself, and if you still don't like them, I mean, that is what it is. You can't force yourself to like games, but at least give it a chance and don't live through somebody else's rage review.
Yeah, we've got enough AVGN knockoffs. We don't need it anymore. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that you joined me for these. This was a lot of fun. Anything new on the Quest 64? Well, we know that there's nothing new in terms of Quest 64 news, but in terms of your online persona, we talked a little bit about this last time. Quest 64 official on Blue Sky. That's primarily where you can find Mike. Anything new that you want to talk about?
Yeah. This episode will likely be coming out in June, which is Questiversary month. So we'll be doing all sorts of Quest things, Quest content creators, and people with small businesses that have Quest stuff to give away and sell. So excited to drop these 2 episodes back to back and I shouldn't say get Rick. I have drug Rick into the deep end of Quest and Questiversary. So I'm excited. All of June we'll be doing some fun stuff on the account. So
that's awesome. Make sure you all check that out. You can find links to Mike's stuff in the description. That's Quest 64 official on Blue Sky. Especially the small creators that are doing stuff, whether it's a small podcast like this one, small YouTube channel, or a small creator that's making physical stickers, magnets, plushes. Oh, is there a Brian plush that we can get? That'd be pretty cool.
Somebody's got to make it. Please make it. Please.
No price is too high. Yeah, that'd be super neat. Make sure you check those out, and supporting small creators is cool and good. There's nothing wrong with big creators. but a lot of the small creators that you may have never heard of are oftentimes every bit as good quality, sometimes better, not always, sometimes. Check them out, and you can check all of that out on Blue Sky Quest 64 Official. So thank you again, Mike. I really appreciate it. And thank you, listeners, for sticking around. As always, you can find links to our stuff in the description as well. Links to the free Discord server that you can hang out in with me and Mike and everybody. Links to the online presence, Instagram, Blue Sky, TikTok, YouTube. And of course, if you would feel so kind, rating and reviewing the show always helps push us into Al Gore's rhythm and helps us become discovered by new folks, talking about small creators. So, thank you for sticking around to listen. I think we're going to call it for now. This has been great. The Quest series has come to an end. Until next time, I'm your host. I am Rick, as always. We're signing off for now. We'll catch you again real soon.